The Supreme Court this week validating Obamacare once again, and the president claiming that Obamacare does not equal government health care. Take a listen.
This has never been a government takeover of health, despite cries to the contrary.
But the CEO of Aetna, the big insurer, just called the government its biggest customer and went on to say this.
They're paying us a lot of money, and they have a right to give us some insight into how they think we should run our business.
Wow. The government deserves to tell Aetna how to run its business. And, John, you say that's proof the government has already taken over health care.
This is so bad and also so predictable. All we have to do is go back to 2013. Morgan Stanley, the investment bank, freely admitted that its #1 client was government. And that's the problem when you take money from government in the first place. You are no longer in the business of profit. You are serving political masters who don't care about profits. Now that healthcare companies have gotten so in bed with government, this is the inevitable result, and it's going to wreck traditional forms of healthcare simply because they're no longer doing it for profit. They're serving, again, political masters who don't have a clue about how to deliver an important product.
And, Bruce, we have the Aetna CEO saying, yeah, the government's managing the company.
Well, it's certainly working for him because Aetna's share price is at an all-time high in revenues and profits and so forth. But what this is doing, it's bringing a set of quality measures and accountability to these health plans that they didn't have before.
Wait, hold on a second. Accountability in the government? I thought that was an oxymoron.
No, listen. They have now under Medicare Advantage. If you're Aetna, you have a set of quality measures and a star rating system. So now these plans have to answer the seniors' phone calls more quickly, improve health outcomes, and then they get paid a little more from the government. So it's a competitive thing.
All right. Well, Steve, I got to agree with Bruce on one point. That as soon as the decision was announced by the Supreme Court on Thursday, the healthcare stocks were booming. They were up double digits in some cases. So they see the money, taxpayer money, flowing right into their companies, right?
Sure, and that's what's happening. You don't have socialism does not mean you take over companies anymore. You make their survival dependent on the U.S. government. So if you play along, you'll get rich. Meanwhile, healthcare suffers. Prices go up, quality goes down, innovation goes out the window. But in the meantime, those who are in the hands of the government will treat you very well as long as you play the game. But the rest of the people suffer for it.
And Emac, just to explain why the healthcare stocks went up so much when the Supreme Court validated again Obamacare, it is estimated that health insurance subsidies, all of them together, are going to add up to $849 billion, almost $1 trillion over the next 10 years. A lot of that's going to go right into the healthcare companies.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, that spending has about doubled over the last 25 years, government spending. So what also is happening, too, because the government spending has doubled thereabouts in the last 25 years, you see a lot of consolidation, mergers in the insurance industries with hospitals, because these guys know
less choice for the consumer, but of course the consumer is the government now, not the individual policyholders.
Less choice, higher prices, less accountability to patients, because these guys know if you're not at the table, you're on the menu, so they have to consolidate to have more bargaining power with the federal government.
All right, so Mike, you have this unholy alliance between government and business. We've seen that so often before. How do we break it? Is it possible to break it?
It's easy to break, David. The Republicans need to come up with a plan that gives the consumer the choice instead of having to do what the government says and makes the dollars in insurance portable with the consumer. This way you can move to a free market system. Look at things like LASIK surgery that are not in insurance plans. The prices have come way down because of innovation. That's what we need to move towards.
Well, Sabrina, you're in Washington. I mean, in Washington, are the Republicans or anybody coming out with a solution like this, a way to get into Obamacare and make it more focused on the individual rather than the government?
Sure, there are plenty of plans out there. There's lots of very bright policymakers and think tank analysts who are working on this. The bigger issue is will Republicans have someone in the White House, and will they have the Congress to help them? Because it's clear that the Supreme Court is no longer going to help end Obamacare. It's going to have to happen in the legislature. And look, I mean, just to Bruce's point, Bruce, you are a nice person, but you are misguided on this. Obamacare is at its core is about the centralization and concentration of both power and money, and the Aetna CEO just admitted that. And the bottom line is that this is removing any kind of market.
Well, let's give Bruce a chance to respond. Go ahead, Bruce.
Well, I would say, okay, buried in these rules and so forth is that the plans now have sets of guidelines, and they have that they never had before. And so back to the Medicare Advantage. And even under the Bush drug benefit, you have more competitive bidding than you ever had before.
Well, I don't know. Frankly, I think a lot of people, that will be, hold on a second. Final word has to go to Steve. Isn't this going to become a key element of the 2016 presidential election if you think Obamacare is working as Bruce does, or if you think it's not working?
Oh, it's going to be key, and Republicans will come up with plans starting with getting rid of the employer mandate and the individual mandate and getting a real free market where you get more for less.
Last word from Steve.